There's a moment in every awakening soul's journey when the question arises, not in anger, but in quiet wonder, why did I end up in this family? Not just any family, but one stitched with wounds, haunted by shadows, held together by a silence so loud it echoes across generations. Perhaps your mother never saw you. Perhaps your father didn't protect you. Or maybe you were the only one who felt everything, too much, too deeply, too young. It's tempting to call it a curse. A mistake. A cruel twist of fate. But what if it wasn't? What if your toxic family didn't happen to you, but for you? What if the pain was not punishment, but preparation? What if your soul, wise, ancient, luminous, chose this very bloodline, this very chaos, as the exact training ground for who you came here to become? In this story, you are not a victim. You are not broken. You are the one who was sent to remember what others forgot. There's something sacred in being the black sheep, the misunderstood one, the outlier sitting at the edges of a dinner table soaked in unspoken truths. If you've always felt like the emotional translator of your family, the one who sensed what others denied, you weren't imagining it. The soul often chooses density so it can remember its light. You were placed among wounds so you could heal what was never healed before. This is not romanticizing abuse. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is remembering that your soul is not naive. It is strategic. Precise. Brave beyond measure. And it knew that awakening amidst dysfunction would ignite a fire inside you no comfort ever could. That fire. That's your becoming. And it begins the moment you stop asking, why me, and start asking, what now? You are not the wound. You are the wisdom that rises from it. To understand why your soul may have chosen a toxic family, we have to step beyond logic and into the symbolic. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the unconscious patterns, traumas, and ancestral imprints we carry until someone chooses to see them. Your family's dysfunction isn't just psychological. It's archetypal. And you, by being born into it, stepped into a living myth. Not the kind with fairy tale endings. But the kind where the hero walks barefoot through fire, finds the hidden door, and transforms poison into medicine. That door was always inside you. The key? Awareness. You're not here just to survive your family's pain. You're here to alchemize it. To look at the mother who couldn't love you and see her mother's wounds in her eyes. To look at the father who disappeared and recognize the lineage of men who were never taught how to stay. This doesn't excuse their actions. But it frees you from carrying their silence as your burden. Your soul may have chosen this particular constellation of pain because pain, when faced, becomes clarity. And clarity becomes power. The kind of power that cannot be inherited, only earned. Families often operate in energetic contracts. Some unspoken. Some karmic. And when you entered yours, whether you believe you chose it before birth or were simply thrown into it by fate, you entered a field of influence. Patterns. Roles. Expectations. Maybe you were the caretaker. The peacemaker. The invisible one. Or maybe you became the storm. The disruptor. The truth teller no one wanted, but the one everyone needed. Your presence was the pattern interrupt. The anomaly that began the unraveling. Not because you were better. But because you were awake. Awake enough to ask, what ends with me? And that question, whispered in the dark, is how family curses begin to dissolve. Many old souls carry what's called ancestral memory, a felt sense of pain that didn't start with them but lives inside them. The trauma isn't always personal. It's systemic. Intergenerational. And unless someone brings it into the light, it repeats. This is where you come in. As the one who feels too much, thinks too deeply, and refuses to numb out, you are the ancestral mirror. And sometimes, mirrors get shattered. Rejected. Blamed. But that rejection isn't your wound. It's their resistance to seeing what you reflect. In spiritual terms, you are not just part of your family tree, you are the one sent to prune it, water it, and plant something entirely new. The work you do on yourself, your boundaries, your therapy, your journaling, your forgiveness, isn't just yours. It ripples. Forward. Backward. Sideways. Across generations unseen. That's what makes your path so heavy at times. You're not carrying just your pain. You're transmuting the unspoken pain of everyone who came before you. And so the question becomes, if your soul did choose this family, this life, this fire, then what is the gift hidden in the flame? Maybe the gift is discernment, the ability to recognize truth from manipulation. Maybe it's emotional depth, the capacity to sit with others in their pain because you've sat in your own. Maybe it's the gift of fierce compassion, forged not in theory but in lived experience. Or maybe the gift is this very moment, where you realize your life has never been a mistake. It has been a sacred unfolding. And even the moments that nearly broke you, were shaping you. In the temple of suffering, character is carved. Vision is born. The soul doesn't seek ease. It seeks evolution. And nothing evolves you like being misunderstood, unseen, or unloved, only to love yourself anyway. You are not here to change your family. That is not your task. Your task is to awaken within your family. To see clearly, to act wisely, and to choose differently. Some people will never understand your boundaries. Some will resent your healing. That's okay. You're not here for their approval. You're here for your liberation. Healing from a toxic family system is not a straight line. It's a spiral. You'll revisit the same wounds, again and again, each time with more clarity, more compassion, more sovereignty. And one day, you'll notice something, the wound no longer defines you. The story has changed. The pain has softened. You've become someone new. Not because your past disappeared, but because you did the inner work to reclaim your power from it. That is how lineage is rewritten. You may find that as you heal, silence stretches between you and those who once called you family. Conversations grow thinner. Holidays become heavier. Some may accuse you of being distant. Cold. Selfish. But boundaries are not cruelty, they are clarity. And often, the most spiritual thing you can do is say no. No to manipulation disguised as love. No to guilt packaged as tradition. No to the role you were assigned, but never agreed to play. Because here's the truth no one told you, being born into a family doesn't mean you owe them your soul. What you owe, to yourself, to the earth, to the divine, is your truth. Your presence. Your authenticity. And sometimes, that means walking away. Not with bitterness, but with reverence for what you've survived. Because walking away can be an act of sacred reclamation. There will be moments where grief and clarity collide. Where you finally see your parents not as villains or gods, but as wounded children in aging bodies, doing the best they could with what they were given, even if it wasn't enough. This doesn't mean you minimize your pain. It means you contextualize it. You shift from, why didn't they love me the way I needed, to, how can I love myself in the ways they couldn't? That shift is powerful. It returns your story to your hands. It moves you from a life of reaction to a life of creation. Jung wrote that, he who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakes. This is your invitation to stop searching for the apology that may never come and start offering yourself the acceptance you've always deserved. And then something changes. Slowly. Quietly. You stop carrying shame that was never yours. You stop confusing loyalty with self-abandonment. You stop performing for people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And in that space, something sacred emerges. Peace. Not the kind that depends on everyone getting along. But the kind that rises when you finally stop betraying yourself. That peace is magnetic. It will confuse some and inspire others. Some will try to pull you back into old dynamics. Others will silently watch, wondering if maybe they can heal too. And without preaching a single word, your life becomes a sermon. A mirror. A map. As you walk this path, you might feel alone. Like you're carrying a torch no one else can see. But you're not alone. Across the world, there are thousands, millions, of awakening souls doing this very work. Quietly, courageously. Turning pain into wisdom. Trauma into artistry. Silence into poetry. And the more you choose healing, the more you magnetize others who are doing the same. You form a soul family, not born of blood, but of resonance. People who see you not for the role you used to play, but for the essence you've reclaimed. These are the ones who remind you, you are not too much. You are just too awake for a system built on sleep. The more you evolve, the more you'll recognize the paradox, your family both hurt you and awakened you. They broke parts of you, that weren't meant to last. They triggered your shadows, so you could integrate your light. They gave you the curriculum for your soul's university. And you, with all your mess and magic, passed the test by refusing to become what hurt you. That refusal is the rebirth. That's where your real family begins, not in those who share your last name, but in those who share your frequency. The ones who don't ask you to shrink, but to rise. The ones who don't punish your truth, but celebrate it. And so, if you've been wondering whether your soul made a mistake, let this be your answer: you were never a mistake. You are a mirror, a catalyst, a spark. Born not to be a replica, but a revolution. A living prayer whispered into a family line that forgot how to pray. And every time you choose honesty over silence, boundaries over pleasing, depth over surface, you're not just healing yourself. You're healing the past. You're healing what came before you, and clearing the path for what comes next. This is not an easy path. But it is a holy one. And every time you feel the ache of disconnection, let it remind you, your soul is not broken. It's breaking open. To hold more love. More truth. More light. The very family that once dimmed your glow became the reason you now burn brighter than ever. Not in spite of them, but because of them. So breathe. You're not lost. You're becoming. You're shedding identities that were never yours. You're releasing loyalties that kept you small. And you're remembering the truth that was never taught, only felt in your bones: you were the one they were waiting for. You are the one who breaks the chain. There's a quiet revolution that begins when you realize you don't have to carry what doesn't belong to you. The guilt. The shame. The silence. The impossible responsibility of fixing everyone else's pain. You were never meant to be the emotional landfill for a wounded system. You were meant to be the alchemist. The one who says, "This stops with me." And saying that doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you awake. Because gratitude is not about tolerating harm. It's about honoring what shaped you without letting it define you. It's about finding gold in the ruins without pretending the fire didn't burn. You are allowed to grieve the love you didn't receive. And you are allowed to build the life they couldn't imagine. One boundary at a time. One truth at a time. The truth is, family is not always a place of safety. Sometimes, it's a place of initiation. A sacred obstacle course for the soul. A firewalk disguised as a childhood. And while others may inherit family heirlooms, you inherited silence, guilt, or fear, and somehow, you still found a way to love. To heal. To rise. That's not weakness. That's spiritual strength. And in the eyes of the universe, your work is invisible only to the untrained eye. To higher consciousness, it is radiant. Monumental. The quiet work of transmutation is holy. And you, just by surviving and choosing to see deeper, have already fulfilled a sacred part of your soul's contract. Jung often spoke of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are, apart from collective conditioning. He knew the family system was the first initiation into this process. The first mirror. The first story. The first wound. And also, the first opportunity to wake up. Because when you begin to see your family not just as your roots but as your reflection, your entire perspective shifts. You stop asking them to become what they cannot be. And instead, you start becoming what you were always meant to be. Fully yourself. Without apology. Without shrinking. Without pretending the room isn't on fire. And what happens next is subtle, but powerful. You become sovereign. No longer orbiting the emotional chaos of others, but rooted in your own light. This doesn't mean you never get triggered. It means you know how to return to yourself. It means that when the old dynamics call your name, you recognize them for what they are, echoes. Not commands. Suggestions. Not truths. You begin to see the family wound as a teacher, not a life sentence. And in that recognition, your nervous system slowly begins to exhale. Your heart opens. Your inner child feels safe, for perhaps the very first time. And in that safety, something miraculous begins to unfold, space. Space to create a new kind of family. One built not on obligation, but on resonance. One that honors who you are now, not who you were taught to be. This is the sacred rewiring. The spiritual renaissance. Where soul meets choice. Where love is not earned, but expressed. Where belonging doesn't require betrayal of self. And in this space, the old stories lose their grip. You are no longer the scapegoat. No longer the caretaker. No longer the one who sacrifices their peace for the illusion of connection. You are free. And in your freedom, you become a lighthouse for others still lost in the storm. Because that's what healed people do. They don't just escape the fire, they become a safe haven. Not by pretending to have all the answers, but by walking their path with integrity. By showing that healing is possible. That boundaries don't end relationships, they reveal which ones were real. That being misunderstood doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're no longer willing to betray your truth to make others comfortable. And that, Mari, is how the new world begins, not through force, but through presence. Through people like you, who chose to see what others ignored. Who chose to feel what others numbed. Who chose to rise, again and again. The moment you decide to no longer participate in the pain you inherited, you become something rare. Something sacred. A cycle breaker. A pattern shifter. An ancestor of peace. And even if no one thanks you, even if your family never sees what you've done, know this, the soul sees. The universe sees. The inner child inside you sees. And she is no longer hiding. She is standing tall in a world that once told her to shrink. She is learning that it is safe to be seen, safe to speak, safe to exist without permission. Because the love she longed for is no longer external, it now flows from within. A quiet, steady river of self-respect, self-trust, and self-love. And that love, though born from sorrow, is the most powerful kind of all. Because it was chosen. Reclaimed. Forged in fire. You may never get closure from your family in the way you imagined. They may never acknowledge the pain. They may never apologize. And that is hard. It is deeply human to want recognition. But your healing does not depend on their awareness. It depends on your choice. The choice to close the loop within yourself. To grieve what never was. To bless what was. And to release the rest. That is spiritual maturity. That is inner freedom. It is the quiet knowing that you no longer need them to see you in order to see yourself clearly. You no longer need them to love you in order to be worthy of love. Your worth was never theirs to give, it was always yours to remember. So if you've been carrying a heavy heart, wondering why your family couldn't offer what your soul needed, let this truth settle gently inside you: your family was the starting point, not the sentence. You were never meant to stay in the story they wrote. You were meant to revise it. Rewrite it. Rebirth yourself through it. And as you do, something even more extraordinary begins to happen: you start living for the first time. Not in rebellion, not in reaction, but in resonance. You choose relationships that reflect your values, not your wounds. You create environments that nourish your nervous system. You give yourself what you always needed: safety, acceptance, love, and you do it without waiting for anyone else to change. This is the quiet revolution. The soft power of the healed. The grace of those who have walked through hell and chose not to become it. And as you walk this path, remember, there is no timeline for healing. No final destination. It is not linear. Some days you will feel invincible. Other days, the ache will return. That's okay. That's sacred. Healing is not about arriving. It's about returning, to yourself, again and again, with more compassion each time. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be, on the threshold of transformation, holding the pen to write your own name, not the name they gave you, but the one your soul has always known. You are not here to fix what others broke. You are here to become whole. To gather every piece of yourself, the silenced voice, the angry child, the hopeful dreamer, and bring them home. Home is not where they loved you. Home is where you love yourself enough to stay. And in that home, there is room for all of you. Even the parts they couldn't understand. Especially those. Because those parts were never too much. They were too wild for cages. Too holy for silence. Too real for people still pretending. And now, you're done pretending. You're done dimming. You're done waiting for the apology that never comes. Because you've made peace with the fact that your power is not dependent on their permission. Your light no longer asks for validation. It simply shines. And as it shines, you begin to see clearly: your family didn't choose you to break you. They chose you because only someone with your soul's strength could hold the weight of this transformation. Only someone with your vision could see what needed to end. And only someone with your love could end it without hate. This is what it means to be chosen. Not for suffering. But for awakening. And now that you are awake, your only task is to stay awake. To live from the truth you fought so hard to remember. To honor the one who endured the silence so you could finally speak. So breathe now. Breathe into the space you've created by letting go. Into the silence that once echoed with pain, and now holds peace. Into the place inside you where once there was a child begging to be seen, and now there is a soul who sees everything with eyes wide open. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of your return. Not to them. But to you. The real you. The one who remembered. The one who rose. The one who realized that being born into a toxic family wasn't the end of your light, it was the ignition of it. And this light, it will keep guiding you. Past the noise. Past the roles. Past the echoes of guilt that try to drag you back into who you used to be. You are no longer available for emotional inheritance. You are no longer interested in being understood by people who only knew the version of you molded by pain. You are here now, fully, fiercely, tenderly, living in alignment with your inner truth. Not because it's easy, but because it's holy. And holy paths aren't walked by many. But you came here to walk one. Your toxic family didn't choose you out of cruelty. They chose you because your soul carries codes they forgot. Because your presence awakens something ancient. Because even in your silence, you disrupt dysfunction. That disruption is not a curse. It is your power. You were never meant to fit in. You were born to transform. Not to become them, but to show what's possible beyond them. And in doing so, you break open a space where future generations, whether children or creations, can breathe freely in a reality that no longer repeats the past. This is ancestral healing in motion. Not loud. Not flashy. But deeply felt. It's choosing presence over perfection. It's choosing love without losing yourself. It's choosing truth when silence would be easier. And in every small moment where you choose healing over harm, reflection over reaction, peace over performance, you rewrite the story. So, let this be your knowing, you were chosen, not condemned. Initiated, not abandoned. And every tear you cried, every boundary you set, every pattern you broke was a sacred act of return. Return to essence. Return to soul. Return to the quiet, powerful truth that your family could not name, but your spirit always carried. And now, with this clarity, you walk forward, not with resentment, but with reverence. Not with bitterness, but with boundaries. Not with pain, but with power. Because the life you are building, the love you are embodying, the light you are becoming, is no longer rooted in what hurt you. It is rooted in what awakened you. You are the one your lineage has been waiting for. And now, you're no longer waiting. You are living. You are free. You are home.